Morning. How much of a lift do you think the result, the performance at Spurs on Tuesday, everything that you managed to do that night, has given you all ahead of another huge away game this weekend?
Yeah, it's definitely helped the feeling and the mood around the training ground. That's what winning does. It's such an amazing sort of thing. It can change the perspective of everyone. So it was a big win for us, but now we've got to try and back it up, and we're searching for that consistency.
And you go from the Premier League to the FA Cup, and you've talked about managing in different competitions this season, but how important would an FA Cup run be to you? How much would you like to have one?
Yeah, we'd love to have one. I mean, I think I get asked a lot about the cup competitions. I think I was asked the other night about our attitude to it, and our attitude won't change. We'll try and win the next game, and that's Aston Villa away. Really tough draw, maybe not the draw we wanted, but it's a competition we want to try and do well in. We enjoyed our run last year, disappointed to exit when we did, so the aim is to go as far as we can.
And can you update us, please, on the fitness and the availability of both Lewis Miley and Bruno?
Yeah, with Louis, we're waiting sort of day by day. He's got a sort of a dead leg, so he got a bad knock to his, I think it was his thigh. I think there was a little bit of muscle damage on the knock, so sort of having scans on a sort of every few days to see how that is. We don't think it's going to be long term. Hopefully be back pretty quickly, so let's wait and see on that one. With Bruno, we were awaiting the full extent of the hamstring injury.
Thank you. Keith Downey?
Eddie, with Bruno, it looked like the other night that he I think he initially got the injury and then he sort of tried to play on, like he tried to sort of stay on the pitch. I think that's been a couple of times. Is that maybe that sort of will to win and that sort of desperation to help the team might maybe cost them a little bit with injuries? It feels like that's maybe happened a couple of times now.
Yeah, possibly. I think with Bruno the other night, I don't think he got the injury when he got the injury. I don't think there was any pre-injury. Obviously, at that stage of the game, he was getting fatigued. Maybe on a normal situation with a full bench, we would maybe have taken him off before that moment, but we didn't. We were run out of midfielders, so he stayed on the pitch and unfortunately got injured.
One of the options you did turn to towards the end of the game, I think Nick Voltemad ended up in there alongside Sandro, I think, in midfield. There's sort of been question marks as to what his best position is. Is that something that you think he could do moving forward more in midfield? Well,
he can definitely play a little bit deeper. I mean, when he's played as a 9 for us, we have used him deeper anyway. We haven't encouraged him to be a runner in behind. That's not necessarily his biggest strength. His biggest strength is his technical ability and coming to feet. So we've played him slightly lower anyway. But definitely, I think he could play various positions. I think he's a talented footballer. He's a really intelligent footballer. Tactically, he's very, very good. So I think there's a lot of scope for us to look at a couple of things with him, and that's what we're trying to do at the moment.
And if there were any sort of outside questions about the togetherness and where you guys are as a group, we saw the celebrations at the end of the game against Tottenham the other night when everyone came together. The players pushed you forward to enjoy the moment with the supporters as well. It was there for all to see, wasn't it?
Yeah, and it's massive for us, that spirit that you talk about, Keith. The feeling we have between each other is everything. It's the sort of the missing ingredient that you can never define. How much you want to win, not just for yourself, but for your teammates, for the coaching staff. The energy that you bring each other every day, that you try to feed off in a positive way. It was there in abundance on Tuesday, and we're going to need that again for the remainder of the season.
Thanks, Keith. Nisha?
Morning, Eddie.
Morning.
Can we have an update on how Joe Linton and Tino Livramento, how their recoveries are going?
Joe Linton's doing really well. Don't think he'll make this game, but he's not going to be too far away beyond this game. So he's desperate to be back involved, as he normally is, but that's a great sign for us. That means he's feeling good about his body, and he's very positive. Tino's on track, so I think it was early March was the diagnosis, was the sort of return to play. And at the moment he's back on grass, he's running, he's building his fitness back up, and we're happy with how he's doing.
As you said, you're going to do everything you can to win this game. this is probably now the best chance of silverware for the club. Do you see it like that? Do you allow yourself to think about, you could potentially go on a run that could take you to a final?
I think we have to see it like that. I think we are here to try and win. Said so many times we loved the last year in the Carabao Cup and what that meant to everybody, what that meant to us, the experience we went through to win the competition, and we'd love to do it in any other way that we can, and that's if that's the FA Cup, then that would be a great opportunity for us. And we look at tomorrow as just an opportunity to win this game that's in front of us. We've then got, of course, a long travel midweek to back into the Champions League, but we'll worry about that when we get there. All focus and all eyes are on this game.
Thank you.
Thank you. Simon?
One of the many FA Cup cliches is that fans might roll their eyes a bit when they hear an unfavourable draw like Aston Villa away. What's the reaction within the club when you hear a draw like that?
It's a tough draw, and I think it's whenever you're away from home, especially with the run that we're on away from home in terms of the consecutive fixtures. I wouldn't say we think too deeply about it in the moment. It's just you absorb it, you take it in, you go, well, that's not ideal, and then you quickly move on and go, well, we've got to do it, and that's where we are. The more sympathy for the supporters who then, as you say, have to make all the sacrifices and the travel arrangements to get to Birmingham for the game. Now our job is to make all that travel and all that disruption to their lives and the cost worthwhile, and that's what we're trying to do.
Unless you're one of the very few clubs with almost limitless resources, how difficult is it to fight a campaign on 3 or 4 fronts?
Well, we found it's not easy. We found lots of challenges along the way. I think the injury situation that we've had it's been difficult for us because, as I said, we've had injuries focused on one area, and now our midfield seems to have been hit with Bruno and Louis and Joelinton, which is, you look at the quality of those players missing potentially for us. That's really damaging for the team. But it has given players an opportunity to step up in their absence, and it's great to see Jacob Ramsey do so well, Joe Willock do so well, and that gives the squad then a different look and a different dynamic. And I'm really pleased for those individual players with how well they're playing.
Thank you. Damien Spellman?
Morning, Eddie. Eddie, when you see 2 of your colleagues lose the jobs as you have done this week, does that bring home just how precarious an existence management is?
Yeah, it always saddens me when that happens because you just have sympathy for every manager because you know how difficult the job is, and especially the modern day life of a manager, I think, is the sort of the sways and the speed of opinion changing is quicker than I think that it's ever been, due to various different factors and forces that you have to sort of compete against. Sympathies for any manager that loses its job. I think for me, I don't think too deeply about it. My immediate focus then goes back to myself and what I can do to help the team that I have, and that's all that I can do every day.
Thank you. Got to Dominic, Lee and then Chris, please.
Morning, Eddie. Without Lewis Smiley, Tino Livramento and Emil Kraft, Kieran Trippier's form in the side has probably come under sharper focus, having to play every game. How do you feel he's managing this demanding run of fixtures? Yeah,
it's been a really difficult period for him because I think the fullback positions are physically one of the hardest that you'll have in the team. The ground that they are expected to cover are really high, and Kieran isn't 20 years old anymore, so he's having to deal with the position, the games at a time in his career when it's probably going to be the hardest for him to do that. I think what you have with Kieran is an unbelievable leader, professional. His appetite and his hunger for success is undiminished, and I thought his game against Tottenham was the strongest game he's had. Looked really, really good athletically, uses the ball so well. But I think his leadership with the back four, with Dan, Sven and Malik, I thought was outstanding. And I thought it's best we've looked defensively as a group for some games. So I was very, very pleased with him. He's such an important player for us. When he plays well and is in a really, really good place, I think the team benefits so much from that. So there's a sort of a big expectation on him to try and deliver. But But at the moment, he's our only fit recognised fullback, and that's tough. That's tough for him to take that burden physically, but I think he's managing it really well.
In terms of fit, recognised fullbacks, how far is Emil Kraft away? Because he's been a few months for him, and is Leo Shahar a realistic option moving forward?
Emil at the moment is not close. Leo's developing well. I think I've got to be really careful. It's very easy for people to sort of see the name and think he's a fullback and to put him in, but I also have to be mindful of when players are ready to play, and all Leo can do is keep developing his game, train really well, and I'll have to make that decision when I feel he's ready to play at the level that we're playing at. And what I would say with Leo is you've got someone who, from what I see and from what I know, believes in himself, backs himself, and I think he does have real potential, but I have to be very careful with all the younger players.
Lee Ryder?
Eddie, just going off the weekend game against Brentford and last night's game against Brentford, just shows you now, I know it was always an old cliche, there's certainly no easy games. Is the intensity in professional football now as bad as it's ever been for you, having to step forward every game?
I just think the level's so high. As you say there, you look at the game last night as I did, and we knew playing Brentford when we did that it was going to be a really tough game. They've got very, very clear strengths, and they're very, very difficult to play against. That doesn't matter whether you're us or Arsenal. These games can be difficult for anybody. Now you back yourself, and you always back your players to have the ability to win any game, and when we're at our best, and I thought against Tottenham we elevated our performance to make the result ours. But if you're not at your best in the Premier League, I think invariably you won't win. So I think that's the big thing. We're still in control of our destiny, but the margins get smaller and smaller.
Just a quick one on Kieran Trippier. Obviously, he is coming to the end of his contract. Is he giving everything his best shot? Is it his last effort for Newcastle, or has there been any development on perhaps giving him an extension?
No, there's been no development on his contract, but I'd never rule anything out with Kieran. There'll be discussions for another day with Kieran and ourselves, very open, and we'll have dialogue as the season progresses. He's been an unbelievable player, professional for this football club. He should never be underestimated what he's done and the difference he's made since signing from Atletico. For me, it was a transformative signing. And I love seeing him play for the team and giving what he gave us against Tottenham. If he can manage to keep that level between now and the end of the season, it'll be a massive help to us.
Chris Woff?
Morning, Eddie. You had the high of Tuesday, but sorry to make you revisit it, but Saturday after the game you spoke about you've got to work better, you've got to do more. Can you just give a little insight into what that's maybe meant this week, what has been different in terms of what you've done, how have you approached this week perhaps differently?
It just means always looking at yourself first and looking at what you're delivering for the players. Changing potentially what you do or how you deliver it or how you execute it on the training pitch. There's always things you can do better. I've been a firm believer of that all through my career. Or you can do the same things in a slightly different way to keep it fresh, to keep it new for the players. And then, of course, there's the thought that you can actually change what you're doing and do something totally different. So I think you always have to have a very open mind in management and in coaching, and that's what I've tried to do. And yeah, we've revisited certain things, we've looked at things slightly differently and ended up working slightly differently, but ultimately then it's how it affects the players and what mindset they go into the game with, and I think that was much better against Tottenham.
Thank you. Go to Charlie, Kieran Craig, please.
Eddie, Sven Botman, someone who's looking like he's getting back to his best levels in recent weeks. Do you think clarity over his future, getting that contract sorted, has been a factor behind that?
I think it would certainly help. I think for any player, I think if you have your future settled and you're not worrying about contract length or anything to do with off the pitch, and you know you're here, then you've got to be all in. And I think Sven's always been someone that has been fully committed. I've never seen a day where he's been distracted. But just when you have certainty over your future, I think it can certainly give you a feeling of contentment, and then you focus on what's really important, which is your performance and everything that goes into that. And I think Sven's been really good in recent weeks. I think we have seen a return to his very best levels. He's such an important figure for us. His use of the ball is so good. His defensive mentality against Tottenham again was outstanding. He defended his goal with Malik and Dan and Kieran superbly. So it was a great performance, and we hope the first of many for him.
Thanks, Charlie. Sorry, Charlie, now. Kieran?
Morning. Jacob Ramsey, a bit like yourself, have been associated with another club for a long time. Do you start to get the sense he feels like a Newcastle man now?
Yeah, I do. I think it can never be underestimated how difficult that is for any player to leave a club that you've been associated with for so long, and then you've got to feel that immediate identity with your new team, and sometimes that takes longer for some people than others, and I'm not saying that was the case with Jacob because I don't know sort of how he felt deep down, but certainly that the first few weeks and the first few games you play can be difficult for a new team, especially if it's a slightly different way of playing and a slightly different position for him. He had a lot to take in. I've got to say he's done it all with real professionalism. There have been no issues with him. He's worked really hard at his game. He's been very conscientious. He's been really good around the training ground. I have to say I think he's settled in really well with his teammates. He's got really good friendship groups and looks really happy. But there's nothing better than actually contributing and helping your team win a game. There's no better way to feel part of the Newcastle family than that, and I think that will be a big turning point for him, hopefully.
Greg?
Eddie, this is more sort of a bigger picture question, but after Tuesday night, there's obviously a lot of emotion and good feeling and talk of Newcastle being back and turning a corner. Just as on the other side of the coin, when you lose against Brentford, you're in an irreversible slump. Does there have to be a middle ground and an understanding that this season is going to be a season of transition coming on the back of the summer, and it might be win, lose, draw, that you are going to bounce through to a certain degree? I know you don't want that, but does there have to be a level of, that bigger picture understanding of where you're at this season?
Yeah, I think the word patience is an understanding that they're rarely sort of accepted, I think, in I don't know, football management or when you're talking about your team, because people want sort of clarity on where you are. They want to know sort of whether you're good or bad, and in the middle isn't accepted. But I think for me, we were well aware going into this season it was going to be different for us because of everything that happened in the summer, as you say. We hadn't recruited in so many windows, and then suddenly we recruit 6 players. That's very, very different to how we had been working historically, apart from our first window. And with that becomes that change. Then we'd been so used to working with the same group of players, working one way, but a lot of those players, or some of those players, had left. And then we go into a new season with no pre-season and no training time with them. So I think that's very difficult. And it has ended up being inconsistent and a little bit up and down. Don't get me wrong, I think we could have done better, and that there's certainly things that we can improve. But I think longer term we'd be better for it if we can work through this season and this period and find, I think the biggest thing is find a clear identity and a clear way of playing, and we can see sort of what the future looks like with this team, and if it's positive, that could be a great thing. So I think we have a duty to try and do that. All we ask from everybody on the outside is that there is some understanding, but we understand that we're under pressure as well, and we have to try and win while doing it.